Hey, this is Ree here. Thank you so much for joining me. I really appreciate everyone. Thank you so much for liking and subscribing. It really helps me a lot. And don't forget to check out my website, paradoxastrology.com. I am a professional astrologer and I can help you with anything. Okay, let's get into this video. I just want to talk about how we have Saturn aspecting Rahu right now until October 2023 and what we can expect to happen. What are the other things that have happened when Saturn aspected Rahu? Because it did happen in 1988, and I'll talk about that. Saturn just went into Aquarius not long ago. Rahu is in Aries until October. So Saturn makes a third aspect onto Rahu. So that means that these two malefics are going to create something that happens. These two malefics are considered a very dangerous yoga. I'm not going to read about it because it's going to scare everybody, and it's not always like that, but there are issues that do come up. And this is for the world. This is not for your chart. Your chart's going to be different, so don't be afraid of anything that I say. Now, Rahu is kind of like Saturn, they say, has the energy of Saturn, but has less self-control. Rahu likes to get everything done right away. So Rahu is the bodiless head that wants to devour everything, right? It wants to be the best. It wants to be at the top of everything. It wants to have the most money. It has obsession towards material goals, which is not necessarily bad. But if you are operating an ego and you have a badly placed Rahu, then it doesn't work out that well to your favor. That's why Rahu does well in Virgo. You're someone who does taxes and you're obsessed with numbers. And you can sit there forever and just write numbers. Or if you're an astrologer, I can sit there and just, read a whole bunch of books and do a whole bunch of astrology that other people probably find boring because of these obsessive things. If you have a Rahu like that, Saturn is going to be aspecting Rahu in Aries, and Saturn finds its debilitation in Aries and is going to be aspecting that. The debilitation is 14 degrees, and that's exactly where it is right now, and Saturn's aspecting it. So there is some caution with that. It's in Bharani Nakshatra, where Venus is a ruler. So this is going to affect Venus as well. We have to look at that. Not necessarily the ruler, but the significator. And we're not really supposed to call them rulers of nakshatras, but Saturn likes to have solitude and abstinence from social interaction. And Rahu likes to shock the people. Saturn is slow moving and wants to get it done with patience, and Rahu wants to get everything done right now, especially in Aries. Now, Aries is like a new beginning. It's like starting something completely different. And then Saturn is comfortable in the sign of Aquarius of humanity. So we have two opposite energies happening. Now, Saturn is also the karma that we'll have to deal with. It has to do with death rate. It has to do with ill health. It's going to have to do with discipline, endurance. It likes to have its traditional values as opposed to Rahu, which is completely out of the box. Rahu is very technological driven and innovative. It's cutting edge kind of science, which is the opposite of Saturn. Saturn likes to do things how it always does. That's why it's a civil servant. It will serve the people the way it was always done. It's traditional values. That's why it could be long-standing fears, because it doesn't like change, and the Rahu is that change. So we have two opposite energies happening. Rahu is lifting that veil. It likes to be shocking. It's time to shock the people. It also can rule psychotic episodes. It can also be desires, craving, deranged thinking, maybe conspiracies. This is negative, but it can be positive as well. Hallucinations, poisons, the addictive side of life, being addicted to certain things, drugs, alcohol, smoking, cigars, things like that. So it's the head of the serpent. So it has an appetite that's never completed because it doesn't have a body. It always needs more. It's never enough. Rahu is also the causal factor of diseases that spread out of control. That's why if you go through a Rahu dasha, you can end up with, depending on your chart, not scare anyone or anything, but you can end up with diseases that there's no cure for, or you don't know where this came from. So having Saturn in Aquarius, which is humanity, and then aspecting Rahu, yeah, there is a possibility of some kind of disease popping up, which is the karma from not taking care of yourself. Now, everything can be cured within the body, so there's nothing to be afraid of. But I mean, on the larger scale, I have to explain what I see. There could also be new technologies of healing that could come out, new ways of healing. It's also alternative healing. There's going to be a lot more alternative healing because people don't want to do it the old ways anymore because of what they saw. When I said it had to do with drugs, now we're going to look back in 1988 when Rahu was the third aspect, was in Aquarius, and Saturn was in Sagittarius. So we have a similar energy, but not quite the same. Now, in 1988, that's when they introduced crack to the US, and it was a new drug that appeared. And so Rahu is obsession with drugs, and then Saturn in Aquarius is humanity. So that completely changed the scope of North America. I don't know how it was in other countries, but the US and Canada, when crack hit, it destroyed families. It destroyed the population in a way that we've never seen before. So these are very possible things that could happen again. Saturn was in Sagittarius, which is a fire sign, which can show something new that can occur as well. So that's kind of where that came from. So we have to be very, very aware that this could be a possibility, especially when the nodes change after that, because after that aspect happens, and then in October, the ketu is going to end up in Virgo, and Virgo is health. So there is a possibility, not to scare anyone, that there is a possibility that there could be some health issues that pop up during this time, or a new drug. Rahu is unexpected things that can happen as well, and it can really shake things up. So in 1988, we also had an earthquake in Armenia, which killed 60,000 people. There were a few things that had to do with earthquakes, so that's definitely a possibility. Also, in 1988, there was a bomb that exploded on a Pan Am Flight 103 over Lockerbie in Scotland on December 21st. Because Saturn is in Aquarius, which is an air sign, and Rahu does rule dark desires and dark things, that is a possibility as well. Also, during that time, Prozac was sold for the first time as an antidepressant. And so that's another indication there could be some new drugs that are put out that may not be that great for humanity, and that could cause problems later on, which ends up being a karma thing. So we have to be careful of that. There was another earthquake in San Francisco, and there was 57 people died as well. So another earthquake, and there was an oil tanker that spilt in Alaska that spilled a lot of oil, and Saturn is oil as well. And Rahu is something getting out of hand. And also the Berlin Wall came down. I think that has a lot to do with Rahu being in Aquarius, and the revolution is kind of like, let's do things completely different. But having Saturn in Aquarius aspecting it, there could definitely be things like that, because there's going to be a lot of the people versus the government or the civil servants. There's going to be a lot of that in wanting to do things differently. What I see as well is Saturn is gas, petroleum, and Rahu is electricity, and it's also new technology. So we're going to have this whole thing about gas versus electric cars. And we're already having these talks now, but it's going to accelerate. There may also be some kind of new, maybe some new regulation in certain countries as well, like that has been happening. Also, having Saturn in Aquarius is having patience with humanity. But Rahu in Aries is technology, but also AI, new beginnings of AI. So we're going to have this question like, can we have patience with a human? Can we have patience with the knowledge of a human? Or are we going to totally abandon that and go for this technology that can write stuff for us in 2 seconds? Is that smart? Are we going to pay karma for that down the road? Are we losing our humanity in that way because we want things to be faster? Are we losing the soul of the humanity because of our impatience? And will our impatience cost us an illusionary world? Aries is war, it's weapons. And that's a very dangerous thing to have there. This is kind of why the war started. It's also an obsession with war. It can be obsession with weapons. And what is the karma that comes about from that? What is the karma to humanity with this obsession with weapons? What do we do with that? Does it escalate? Rahu equals a lot of bad things that I don't want to explain, like bombs and things like that, right? There's going to be this push and pull. Or taking away weapons. Do we decide now it's a new beginning, we don't want anybody to have weapons, or taking away guns, or taking away from humanity, things like that? Is that the right thing to do? Also, Rahu's influence on modern pharmaceuticals shows it's very highly toxic. So anything that comes out this time that isn't alternative healing has a high probability of being very toxic to humanity. And what is the karma that will pay for that? What is that? What can we gain by using this technology, or poisonous things do we gain from it? These are all the kind of questions. Saturn's kind of more well placed for that. So I feel that a lot of these things that maybe we introduce will backfire eventually when the time comes. Saturn is a great teacher that's going to teach us a lot. Saturn is longevity, it's ill health. It wants to get things done in a very slower way, and we're probably advancing faster than, which is good for our karma. Saturn will teach us discipline, fortitude, accountability for our actions. There will be some that will have to be accountable for certain things that they did do. This is not a time where you can just do anything and not be accountable. Well, you're always accountable, but especially during these times, people will have to be accountable. So yeah, having Saturn, which is ill health, aspecting Rahu, which is poisons, there's going to be a lot of different things that will happen. The positives, people are going to be more about humanity, more caring about humanity, finding different ways of helping each other. New beginnings will happen, new things will occur. With Saturn, Rahu, you could have the discipline to go for certain things that you wanted. It could bring a lot of abundance, it could bring a lot of wealth to certain people's lives, depending on your chart as well. As long as you're patient and you don't do things out of ego. That's the most important part during this time, and all times, is to be patient and don't do things out of ego. So that's just my interpretation of Saturn aspecting Rahu, and I hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you next time.